On September 1st, 1939, Hitler, the dictator of the fascist Nazi regime, commanded Nazi forces to march on Poland. At the time, Hitler and Stalin, the leader of the USSR, made a deal known as the Hitler-Stalin Pact, in which the USSR and Nazi Germany partitioned Poland. After the initial invasion of Poland, the Nazis abolished the entirety of the ruling Polish government. Many government officials were arrested by the SS, the Nazis' iteration of the Special Forces. However, some managed to escape to Britain. The Polish Underground was formed as a result of the Nazi occupation. The Polish Underground was an underground government which governed a sort of resistance in Poland. The Armia Krajowa, or Home Army in English, was a military force which accompanied this government. The Armia Krajowa would turn out to be one of the largest resistant militaries in all of World War II. Poland was not the only country being invaded by the Nazi regime. France, Yugoslavia, Prussia, Denmark, Holland, Czechoslovakia were all being invaded by Hitler and his imperial forces at the time. As a result of the new ruling government in Poland, living conditions began to worsen rapidly. Polish Jews who were once simply living in poverty were now separated from mainland society as a whole. The Jews were sent to concentration camps throughout Germany and Poland, where many would go to die. Poland became a very poor country. People who were not sent to camps were left with very little money, and inflation rates were going up rapidly. Poland became incredibly militarized as a country, and laws became incredibly strict. The Gestapo were constantly roaming the streets, looking for Jews either hiding or outside. Food had become hard to come by, and water became very dirty and unhealthy to consume. Many Polish citizens immigrated to other parts of the world, including parts of Europe, the USA, or Canada. Most, however, went to Britain, as it seemed the safest at the time. At the same time as the Nazi invasion from the west, the USSR was also pushing into Poland from the east. As stated before, at the time, the USSR and Germany had a pact, the Hitler-Stalin Pact, in which they partitioned Poland between the two forces. However, after Hitler decided to attack Stalingrad, the pact fell apart, as Stalin lost faith in Hitler. Stalin began to attack the Nazis in Poland. They began to push further west, taking more and more Nazi territory as they went along. The ultimate objective for Stalin was to push into Germany and end the Nazi regime once and for all. As a result of the vast amount of infantry, tanks, planes, and artillery being thrown at the Nazis due to the Soviets' vast resources, they began to retreat. As the Polish learned of the Nazi retreat out of Poland, the Polish underground saw a perfect opportunity to gain resistance from the Nazi regime and the Soviet regime. On August 1st, 1944, the same day the USSR was attacking a major German city, the Armia Krajowa decided to take advantage of the distracted Nazi troops, who were drawn to their radios to hear about the ongoing battle, and barricaded a Panzerkampfwagen Jagdpanther named Hetzer, a German tank destroyer, which they renamed to Hivat, loosely translating to blade in English. The Polish soldiers captured the tank crew and used Hivat as a roadblock, attacking German cars and troop carriers as they passed. After several German cars and troop carriers were destroyed in the attempt to capture them, the Poles finally managed to capture a Sonderkraftfahrzeug 251, which they painted the Polish flag on and used to traverse the city during the attack. By this point, General Tadeusz Bohr Komorowski gave the order to the Warsaw Corps of the Armia Krajowa, consisting of roughly 50,000 men, much larger than the weak German forces in the city, to attack. The Poles attacked German forces and pushed them back. They managed to capture roughly 73% of the city in just 3 days, without the aid of the Soviets or any other allies. However, the Armia Krajowa was swiftly running out of supplies which they needed. The Soviet forces, who claimed they were going to assist in the uprising with the Armia Krajowa, were pinned down in a town about 13 kilometers from Warsaw, preventing them from assisting. The Poles held off the Germans for several days. Eventually, the Poles ran out of food, ammo, and other resources necessary for survival. The Nazis used this to their advantage and pushed back, forcing the Armia Krajowa into small, disconnected groups throughout the city. The Poles now in a defensive position, simply trying to stay alive, requested help from the Allies. The Allies tried to help, however, Soviet forces would not let American or British planes land at their airfields to deliver supplies to the Poles or bomb German forces in the city, as this could have jeopardized the Soviet invasion of Poland. The Poles were relentlessly bombed and shelled for the next 63 days until they finally fell. By the time the Nazi forces had finished the Armia Krajowa off, they had leveled the entire city of Warsaw. One building, the Prudential Building, as it was called, which served as the headquarters for the Warsaw Corps, was shelled over 1,000 times and still stood after the attack. After the Armia Krajowa surrendered, the Germans captured General Komorowski and most of the remaining Warsaw Corps and sent them to work camps. The entire population of Warsaw was deported to the same camps along with the troops of the Warsaw Corps. Poland would be occupied by the Nazis until 1945, when the Soviets finally liberated Poland and began to push into Germany along with the US and Britain. Poland would remain under Soviet control until 1989, where the Poles finally gained independence after over 70 years of fighting for freedom. In an interview with Stanisław Likiarnik, a Warsaw Uprising veteran, he states, most Polish cavalry units were not at all armed with firearms, yet still held swords and knives, which is one main reason the Poles would not have been able to hold Warsaw off after the Nazi reinforcements arrived.